The Bill Clark Show, presented by Dr. Pepper. And now, Coach Bill Clark.
Welcome in. It's the Coach Bill Clark Show, presented by Dr. Pepper, Buffalo Rock, Pat Smith, along with Landry Roberts, Molly Robinson, and the Coach Bill Clark. Coach, we've actually got pads about to be popping. We got players on the field. It is here. Fall camp opening up across the South.
Yeah, it is. It's here. I talked to a lot of coaches as they're getting ready. I look forward to getting to see a bunch of practices in the next few weeks. It's just all the logistics they've had. There's so much change that people probably don't even know about the fact that there are balls out. There's mini camps going. A lot of things that we could not do that you wanted to do to actually get a football out. They've been able to do that in the summer leading up to camp, which should make them ahead.
How much are you going over script? Your different periods that you have laid out for that first practice. Not that these coaches haven't done it, and even though you've done it with your staff 1,000 times, how detailed are you, especially for that first practice?
Yeah, you've practiced that practice if you know what you're doing. You've talked about it. You've worked on it. You've made sure they should have been talking about the drills. Now that's where these mini camps have got them to where they were able to actually snap a ball and make sure people in the right spot. The people that really know what they're doing have divided their practice up now, how much of this can you do? But you would love to have 1s and 3s here and 2s and 4s here, and everybody's practicing, everybody's playing, and everybody's going, and you don't have to be out there all day because you're so organized, you're getting so much done. So, yeah, you've met about it, you've talked about it, you've worked on it, and that ability to practice efficiently is going to be so critical. Everybody's first practice is always great. I always say, all right, what about practice 2? What about practice 4? What about practice 7? That's going to be the key to what you get done.
Go back to and explain to our audience and even educate us, because I was listening to Lane Kiffin yesterday at his press conference, and he brought that up about how it's different now because of the things that you can do in the summertime. So kind of take us there of what they can do now as opposed to what you couldn't do when you're at UAB.
Yeah, so let's go back to high school. And I remember this was a conversation, Steve Savarese. I'm on the executive board. I'm the only coach on the board. Steve Savarese, who had been a coach. In fact, his last game was against me. I was at Prattville. He was at McGill-Tulane. And he gets our executive director, and he really had the idea we need to maybe do away with spring training. And I said, absolutely not. But as coaches, we would be willing to give up some days to be able to wear a helmet in the summer and to be able to get a football out in the summer. That changed us so much. So we kept spring, we cut it down, which was a great idea. And then we were able to get the pad, the helmet on, which was safety, and get the football out. Now, this is what colleges now are able to do legally. People were doing it where you sit up there and you watched your guys and they handled it.
But you could not, as a coach, you could not be on the field.
Could not be on there. So
but you can now.
You can now. And it is so smart because what it does, it cuts back on some things maybe you had to do in the summer. And I think it really protects the athlete, because if you're smart now as a coach, I'm not having to teach inside zone and basics. I mean, you're always teaching, you're always adding, you're always planning. But you've now been able to get the football out to be able to work on those things. And I think it protects the athlete. You don't have to throw so much in at once in the summer. You can be a little more, and this sounds crazy, but you can take your time a little bit, be better to their bodies, I think, in a lot of things. And we've had so many things cut out, the 2-a-days and the 3-a-days. Now it's a practice and a walkthrough. All these things are better for the player, so they're good changes, and we're doing more football things early.
Preference morning practice or afternoon practice, evening practice for this time of year?
Absolutely morning. Absolute morning with a walkthrough in the evening. Now, that's my preference. That's what I did. That's what I wanted to do. You've got to look at when you play. I was talking to a coach who was talking about he's got 3 first games at 6 p.m. So he's practicing at 6 p.m. a lot. I mean, if you've got enough games that merit that. Now, I knew when school came, I went to the afternoons. Why did I go to the afternoons? I didn't want to. I like the mornings better. But we played pretty much afternoon to evening games. I was always worried about their clock. Me and Coach Saban talked about that before. I love morning practice. Now, at Prattville, we could go first block. I had them in athletics. First block, we came back after school. Never had pads on in the afternoon. It was more run through, walkthroughs, weights, video. Got it done in the morning. It was cool. They were fresh. I love the mornings.
I assume when you played for your dad,
yeah,
did you have 2-a-days or 3-a-days?
Yeah, back, and I did not play for Dad the whole time he got out of coaching for a while, but it was 3 and 4 days. And what they did in the summer. Now, my dad always, he was ahead of his time in so many ways, but we ran sprints in the summer. I was with good coaches, and y'all know these guys go out, June, run a mile, July, run 2 miles, August, can't. I mean, insanity.
All right, so take us through that the 3-4 days. So I'm like when would it start, and what's the repetition of the drills that you would do throughout the day?
This would be camp. So we would have centers and quarterbacks on the field at 4:30 in the morning. I mean, literally, they're cutting car lights on.
What was the earliest you ever practiced?
6:30.
6:30?
Yeah.
4:30.
Literally, the centers walked out on the field. Now, this was a getaway camp, which was smart, so you actually had a team. Now, this was not my dad. This was George Hobbizel, who followed him. We then had a walkthrough, a special teams walkthrough at lunch. We had a full padded practice in the afternoon at 3:30. And then we would tried to have something at night, and they ended up canceling a lot of those. But a lot of 3-a-days, which was pure insanity.
We had the 2-a-days when I was in high school.
Yeah.
In the morning practice, you go home for lunch. You had that brief break,
Yeah.
which was awesome. But then you would come back in the real heat of the day.
Yeah, standard was 2-a-days.
I love though what you did at Prattville and saying knock it out during first block and then come back and do some of the other stuff in the afternoon. I wish we would have done that.
There was, and I always said Rush and I were probably, because we were kind of competing with each other with understanding what the other one was doing. But I think and I say this to
he got a TV show out of it. What'd you get?
I know. He was MTV. I always tell him, I said, we're probably more CMTV. But, I think the fact about, and I put a tweet out about this today about the heat and taking care of your kids. And, the athlete's job is to get fluids in them. There's so many things that I love to talk about this, like creating breaks in practice with Gatorade that simulate the start of the game, that simulate halftime. How many times you see teams, they don't understand how to come back after halftime. So you got to practice it. So that I knew, because, that was why it was so important to get people with water bottles. I remember sucking sweat out of a shirt. My dad did quick kick back in the day. I mean, he understood that you had to hydrate. And then I play for a guy who you're trying to suck sweat out of your jersey because they won't give you water. How did we all survive? And that's why I tell guys, make sure they got water. Pay somebody if you got to have somebody stand around with water. So these kids, because it's not even the game. They get water in the game. I mean, it's just insanity that we did those stupid things or people did.
That's why you're in charge of Coach Safely now.
Exactly. I mean, let's make it where we get them water, we give them breaks, and then they can really go. Because, not survival mode, but real practice. Short bursts of intensity. That's what practice should look like. It should be things that we could carry the game. And y'all know me, I wanted to say when you came to UAB and watched us practice, nobody practiced better. I mean, I don't think people own that patent on who practiced the best. Now, you go watch Alabama practice, it was unbelievable. Pete Carroll, I saw his practices. He was using crowd noise when people weren't. But I said we could have the best practices if I managed them right, if I controlled them, if I had enough people, if we did it right. And I didn't say we had all the best players, even though we had good players, but we could control the practice. We could control the organization. We could control how we took care of them. These things we're talking about.
I know how you did it, but it seems like it's more so now, and maybe NIL and real money factors in, but more coaches not going full scale physicality with a lot of their practices. What's your thought process on that, given the climate of college football?
Yeah, I could care less. I mean, I would care less about the climate of coaching if it was me. And you might say, well, you're not going to win. And I'd say, well, this is why we win. And it's not about, I think the physicality is where people, they don't understand that the staying off the ground, you can be physical, you can wear pads, you can lock up, you can do a lot of these things. As long as you're staying off the ground, you avoid cheap shots. That's where I would get upset, where we had a guy going across the middle and somebody take a shot at him, or a running back going to try and get this low off the ground and run somebody over in a drill. It's just as bad. I hear these offensive coaches talking about defensive players. I always say, wait a second. I'm in a drill that's a thud-up drill, and you got a running back trying to run over somebody with his pads down. Well, so, of course, the guy's got to get down and get up on it. And that's where the head coach comes in. His job is to set the pace, to set the tone, to protect the players, and then to get on ones that aren't handling it the right way, yet still have physicality and still have protection. So it's an art to it, I think, in how you practice. But the ones that understand it, what happens, so many of these guys got to come up under Saban. It's like cheating. You got guys that really didn't know their butt from a hole in the ground, but they got to go under him and learn how to practice, which give him credit, because he worked the dog out of them, But the guys that got up under that tree were able to take those practice schedules. Now, I was telling a story, Steve Sarkisian spoke it, I had my clinic. It's Alabama's practice schedule. I guarantee if I pulled Lane's practice schedule up, it's Alabama. It's the format. It's how he did it. And so we all borrow these things from somebody, but that was a guy that understood how to practice.
I'm a position coach. Take me through a day of fall practice. What are my responsibilities? What am I doing throughout the course of the day?
Yeah, so I'm gonna look at you every day, and we're gonna meet, talk. I was a big meeting guy, but not for long. It was constant communication of what are our standards. Our standards are you are between the lines, your helmet's buttoned up. Now, not when you're getting water, but your helmet's buttoned up. You're running everywhere you go. You're focused. You're the head coach of your position. So I expect the very best out of them, and your job is to take care of them. Just like I might sit there and say, Pat, tell me your GPA of your guy and your quarterback or your linebacker or whoever it is. I want to know his GPA. I want to know his mom and dad. I want to know. So of course you're going to be the head coach of that position and know everything about him and the expert on those drills. Because when you've got a 15-minute period to get these drills done, do they relate to the game? Do they relate? Are you standing around talking? Have you already shown? You should have shown them this drill. They should have walked through this drill. They should have seen it on video, and they're just out there going. Now, you're coaching them as they go. Are you coaching all the time? You should leave the field exhausted as a coach.
Is it your discretion on what drills they're
it's always my discretion.
Implementing?
Always my discretion, but I'm trusting you. My question would be, am I seeing a drill just like ball security? And I've talked to y'all about the ball as a game. I had to lose an game undefeated as we're setting up for a field goal by a great player who doesn't have great ball security. I became obsessed. And so every drill is ball security. If you're not, anybody that touches the ball, which starts with a center snap, does the quarterback look it in or is he doing this? So if you're obsessed with it day one, you're obsessed with it day 2, day 10, day 100. Same thing with tackling. But then it really becomes down to the minute details, which I say go back to training. So when I'm talking to somebody about running through a line, just like I talked about camp, you come to my camp and we're going to run 140. How many guys let up before they got to the 40? Are you running a 40? You really run a 50.
Yeah.
Because what are we establishing? We're establishing the details, the finish, the effort, all those things. But that's why we go to Legion Field and we run the stadium steps at 6 in the morning in 30-something degrees. That establishes these things we're talking about. And then we say if you run the outside zone or you're throwing it every down, it really doesn't matter. It's all about execution of whatever we call it.
Well, it's about being smart, and that's the way it sounded when Coach Bill Clark was running his football team. And you can be smart with banking as well.
Yeah, I say it all the time about our guys at Smart Bank. I was in there just a little while ago immediately. And granted, I'm on the board. I do the show. But I saw it with the person standing beside me. Attention to detail. They care about their folks. What can we do? How can we help you? I think you're going to really be happy with the folks at Smart Bank.
Coach, Media Days wrapped up on Friday for most all conferences, including the American. Trent Dilfer, the UAB head coach, he was one of the center stage coaches that was asked some questions. And he mentioned that he was very fortunate to have an opportunity to come back and try to right some wrongs. Only 7 wins in his first 2 years at UAB.
Yeah, they've struggled. There's no two ways about it. He, in today's world, used to you thought of 3 years. And it's not the way. The case now is 2 years, and a lot of times you're gone. So I think he is very fortunate, and he's got an opportunity. I think just from what I understand, he's went and brought in sounds like some better defensive coaches, which I think gives him a chance. I don't know. I know they lost a lot of roster folks. It just we've talked about everybody has their style, and and he's a talker. And that's okay. It's all going to be about what you do on the field. So everything I was doing in those meetings was to talk to my team, probably to talk to my opponents a little bit. And it was really, I was always underselling. I didn't want to undersell my kids, but I wanted to every advantage I could give us as we got ready to play. Anything I could do to talk to a player to motivate him that was listening, that was always my goal. So yeah, he's fortunate, and we'll see what they do.
You mentioned the defensive coaches that he's brought in, and you're right. And guys that are highly thought of from folks at the NFL level, but conceptually, schematically, is sometimes going more simplified? Is that advantageous, or does it just depend on the collection of players that you have? Because what Navy runs might be different than what somebody else runs, if you know what I'm talking about. Shoulders up.
Yeah, well, I think it's got to fit the guy. I think it's the guy that's making the calls and how much he understands. Now, you want to fit your players, you want to fit the people you're playing, which I think leads to multiplicity. The fact that having a defensive guy with experience is going to definitely help them. I don't know the guy. I just know what I've heard. I've heard from about other folks. Sounds like they have experience, and experience is going to help. And I think that's what they were lacking before. But it still starts with defense, because that's a mindset that carries over to your whole team.
In regards to competing in the American, not only for a UAB program, but any American program, you had Memphis that was offering up $200+ million to leave the American to go to another conference. You've got Tulane. There's been flirtations with them going to maybe the brand new Pac-12. Where UAB currently is in this conference, in any group of five, how difficult in this landscape is it for these teams to honestly compete?
I think the American has been given an opportunity because they've had a forward-thinking leader. When Aresco stepped out and they replaced, he has put it on them that they had to have a minimum commitment, and it has really made a huge difference, even for UAB. And I'm hearing this from other coaches that are competing against them now. I mean, that was like a given. I think sounds like they were forced to do it or they were going to lose, but which is ridiculous. Makes me mad, but it was done. And, for Coach Dilfer's sake, So
let me ask you this. When you were the head coach at UAB, and if the conference had set that standard then, how different would your program would have looked?
Oh, it would have been huge. And what's so funny, and I've told the story, Resco calls me 3 different times to tell us we're going to be the new Cincinnati. He didn't know our financial situation. And I kept saying, do not let us go to this conference if we're not going to commit. If we're not going to commit financially, oh, by the way, we've done a $1 billion campaign and met it in the middle of our tenure there. So it's no doubt we can do it. We're making money. We're doing good. And then to have them fight it is just disgusting. But they are above, I think, the Americans above everybody else of all the.
Just the minimum expectation of what you have to do.
Absolutely. They're definitely above.
NIL-wise, what are you hearing for a group of 5? Let's just take American. What ballpark are we talking about just to be in the conversation, to be able to compete to get some of these players? Yeah,
the ballpark's $2.5 million. The good ones are doing probably close to 4 to 5. I say the good ones, the great ones. I mean, you saw Memphis, what Memphis has done from, and it started with Fred Smith. And, Fred Smith made no bones about it. He was doing that for them to go to another conference, because he wanted – that's the kind of guy he was. He was a visionary. He wanted big things, and he knew what that would do for the town, all the above. So that's where that kind of got started, was from him. But that's where you should be. I mean, how do you got to think big. You got to have vision. And I think that's where we are. And I'm going to go back and, just UAB, our town, what we did, the amount of people that raised money, and now where are we? You got to have leadership. You got to have leadership, whether it's conference leadership, school leadership, and you got to understand, once again, as we know, the front porch is athletics, specifically football. So hopefully somebody around here will realize this. But I do think UAB, because of the conference, has been put in a shape that's better than all the other folks, other than in their conference.
Well, one thing's for sure, Coach, you've got the division of the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
We've always had that in college football.
Absolutely.
But now moving forward, would you endorse maybe a system in which you would have the Power 4 teams play in an upper-level division, and then you would have the likes of a UAB, Troy, South Alabama? They would play in the, let's just say that would be probably teams 66 through 138.
Yeah.
Those would be the teams that would literally play like in a 1AA classification for a championship.
I would have said, I think before we talked about this, and I said, I think I like that idea. I really want to see what happens right now. with this new agreement.
With the CFP expansion?
I want to see it. I want to see it before I kind of make a decision on what I think. I'm really interested what happens with, I saw where President Trump just put out. I don't know enough about it to speak. I've heard good things, but I've heard it from SEC guys. Is that something, and you guys have probably talked about this, I want to hear is there a model out there that could raise everybody up and maybe get back in some shape to where I don't know. Because if we don't, I would agree that we probably do need to split them up.
What's the biggest thing facing college football that you think is correctable, fixable within the next 2-3 years?
I think guidelines. I think, can we get to guidelines that can be enforced legally, and not get overturned by some crazy judge somewhere that takes care of the players, shares in the money, but has got a system of contracts, stability. We got to have some stability. We've got to have some contracts. Hopefully, maybe it's somebody like President Trump getting involved. We knew it was going to have to be somebody saying, these are the rules, these are the guidelines. We got to get to some kind of something like that, or who knows where we're going to end up.
What are you hearing from your coaching friends who are still in the industry actively coaching about the app, the NIL Go?
Yeah.
How's that going?
Yeah, they're, and I'm telling you from the top to the bottom, praying that they can get to one window. They're praying for a window that we can
just
get.
The January window.
Just the January window. And the problem is you got some guys that don't like that window, and I talked about it last week, some of your Midwestern that don't like the weather. But whatever it is, get to one freaking window, just so you're not dealing with this again in the spring. It's just insanity. So that one window would make a big difference.
Aren't they going to? These kids are going to figure it out that it gets colder in the wintertime eventually, right?
You would think. Well, that's where leadership's got to go. I hear you, but no, we got to have a window. This is the time it fits, and this is what we're doing. And sorry, this is just the climate. But you've been getting players for 100 years. You're going to keep getting them.
You pay them enough, they don't care what the temperature is.
Right. You've got money. You're going to get to pay them.
Layer up.
But let's get them to one window. And that, once again, I think that starts creating some parameters and guidelines to some sanity.
Speaking of sanity, your Donahue Chevrolet, your Tahoe, good-looking vehicle.
Yeah, it's very washed and clean. If don't listen to what they say, I keep it very clean. But appreciate our guys at Donahue Chevrolet. I get asked about that Tahoe a lot. I really do. I've probably sold a lot of vehicles for them.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah,
when it's washed.
All
right, Coach. Fall practice beginning. Tuscaloosa, also in Auburn. Let's start in Auburn. Hugh Freeze, pivotal third season. What he said, and I'm going to paraphrase about his quarterback Jackson Arnold. In paraphrasing, he said we asked defensive coordinator DJ Durkin to maybe simplify things. Make it easier as far as coverages, defending against that offense back in the spring, because he wanted his quarterback to leave the practice field a confident quarterback.
Yeah, well, I don't understand that. My first thing, if I did it, I wouldn't say it. But, I think the big thing here is there was a time, and let's go back to Springs back in the day. All right, we're going to play 4-3 cover 2 or 4-3 quarters, X amount of practice. We're going to be base. We're going to line up in base and just get good at it. Here's the problem with that. That's not real. As people got more multiple, as you saw more things, this simplicity thing, and that's what I always say about the quarterback. Now, not injuring him, not hitting, that's different. But giving him multiple looks. He's going to have time with scouts. He's going to have plenty of time to throw against whatever look you want to put over there for him. But when I've got my defense over there, I want it tough on him. I want him to have to learn. Now, I'm the only one getting on him. Nobody else is going to say anything to this guy. So there is a confidence, don't get me wrong. But I want the kitchen sink thrown at him, because that's what's going to be thrown at him later. And let's see how he handles it, digests it. I sure don't want it happening in the game. And I surely don't think he meant it that way, but he said it.
So the first couple of years under Hugh Freeze, it has not gone very well at all. The product on the field has fallen short of what the expectations are at Auburn. In regards to this year and the expectations, and with what he has on that roster, and handpicking his quarterback, paying a lot of money for him, What are the expectations? If he doesn't go 7-8 wins, are we having a different conversation this time next year, or if it's a new brand new head coach at Auburn?
I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, I just hearing from boosters, hearing from the people behind, I think he knows that. I don't think Coach Freeze would be any – he's not going to be shocked by it. He knows the expectations where he's at. He knows the amount of resources given to him. He knows the players he's got coming back. And I think we talked about that in recruiting. Probably that's been their problem recently is there's people holding money out. Just being honest. I think he knows that. I think he's prepared for that. They had 2 really good recruiting classes before. All those things, though, you can still lose. You can be ready, you can be prepared because it's going to come down to a play here or a play there. The question will be how good is this quarterback who's got all the talent? And, I think that's going to come down. I tell you what, I was very impressed, and I've said this before last year. I thought they stayed together with all the noise. So you got to give them credit for that last year. They kept playing. I didn't hear things. I didn't see things other than the fact that they did not find ways to win games. And they're going to have to do it this year. Or it'd probably be somebody else.
Other side of the state in Tuscaloosa, Kalen DeBoer entering season number 2. Ryan Grubb.
Yeah.
Familiarity. Guy he's comfortable with. His offensive coordinator. Just from your perspective, how much more beneficial can that be for Alabama as a whole, for Kalen DeBoer, not only as an offensive guy, but as a head coach and having that guy that you're really comfortable with, as opposed to last year and maybe even being season 1, but having to make sure that Nick Sheridan was doing it in the right way.
It's huge. Really, it is huge because what he got was another him. So now he gets to be more head coach because now he's really got 2 offensive guys, 2 coordinators, plus himself. And then he gets to be the gravy on top of that. He gets to do the extra. He gets to be a head coach. It was a blessing for him to get a really good coach back who understands him, who knows what to look for. I still think for them, the question for me is going to be, I think the question is always the quarterback for everybody. You got a new one. And then I think really, did they make these changes that they talked about from a toughness, from a details? Because we're talking about rarefied air. So when we're talking about the best of the best, the things where they got guys not doing exactly what they should from a discipline standpoint, that's when it's going to show up. And that's when you're going to lose to the Georgias of the world, the Texas of the world, if they're doing it the right way. And I know how Kirby's doing it. So that's what I think that's the question mark. Not is he a good coach, that was a huge move for them. They're going to be better, I think, offensively because of that, even though with the loss of Milroe, I think they'll be better as a staff. Did they make the disciplinary changes, in my mind, to really be the best of the best?
We've got a very special sponsor to this program that's based out of South Alabama. And if you go to a sporting event anywhere around the world, you're going to find them. Yeah,
K9 Global Protection Unit. And we kid a lot about it, but really having those K9s there that are trained by our veterans, Auburn, Opelika area, who are guns, bombs, and, in just today's world, it's great to be able to go to an event or go to an airport and know you're protected and safe, and we appreciate those guys.
We are about to hit the month of August, and which means we will actually have live tackle football, which will count this in the month of August.
Yes.
We also have a very special event coming up at the Vestavia Hills Country Club.
Yeah, August 26th, we've got Tommy Tuberville, we've got Paul Feinbaum, we got myself, and these folks will be there. And just, this is a fundraiser for Coach Safely. And just real quickly, training youth coaches, but we're doing more than that. We're getting programs partnered up with flag football, Izell Reese, promoting specifically, flag football is coming into, it's really hot in our schools. Young ladies are doing that. It's become a sport in our schools, creating feeder programs in these schools. Got something to announce probably next week where we're teaming up with veterans, for helping create officials with our veterans group. Mike Pierre, the officials, you got the head official,
from Fox.
From Fox. He's got battlefields to ball fields to create officials and coaches. And we're going to be partnering up with him with Coach Safely to help really do some things for our veterans. I think it's going to be really cool.
I liked Mike until he blew that call in the UFL game with Stallions. Remember that? When we saw him on the big screen?
Which one, Pat?
I'm just kidding. It was just the one.
Love you, Mike.
Oh, I love you, Mike. All right, another edition of the Coach Bill Clark Show presented by Buffalo Rock and Dr. Pepper for all of us here. Have a great week. We'll see you next time right here on Jocks.
Bill Clark Show, presented by Dr.